Nice to talk to you finally.
Yes, to you too. I'm so excited to talk with you and hear more about you and your work. And thank you
Mm.
so much for reaching out to me.
And
Um,
thanks for agreeing to interview me. I feel like I was really nervous reaching out because I was like, oh no, is she gonna, is it good? Because I'm in the process of learning, and it was just wonderful that you were accepting of my new venture, my inexperience, what I know so far. So it was wonderful. Thank you.
well, of course, and excuse me, thank you, for being here. And that's the thing I love about this project is I'm really interested in speaking with and documenting the experiences of every, spectrum of women and gender nonconforming makers, woodworkers. Um,
Hmm.
and I think it's really important. I say this all the time, but I think it's really important that we listen to people that are new to the craft, people that have fresh eyes and fresh enthusiasm. And
Hmm.
especially in this last year, it has been just
Absolutely.
tremendous, the creativity. It makes me
Yes.
love women and
Hmm.
non-binary people, so like makers and artists, so much more, because it's like, yes, like we're used to having to deal with hard stuff. And
Hmm.
to see so many thrive creatively. But enough about that. Safa, please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into woodworking.
Sure, sure. My name is Safa Patrina, and I am a wife, mother to a 2-year-old boy, uh, and woodworker. I'm also a teacher and a beekeeper, but woodworking and mothering are my main focuses right now. And I got into the practice a few years ago, I think about the beginning of 2017, while my husband, now husband, and I were courting. He's a master woodworker. He also builds um, sets for network television. So
Okay.
he engineers and builds like these big sets, and then his company ships them out and installs them. And I started because I knew he was a woodworker. I think at that point, I had already seen the shop. But I had moved to an apartment and I wanted a bed. I wanted a nice bed. And I was looking through, like, I knew what I wanted in my head, and I'm very particular, and everything that I liked was way out of my budget. It was a way, I had like a Wayfair budget. And the things that I wanted were, custom reclaimed lumber, like handmade beds.
Yeah.
So then I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try to make a bed. And I that was the first time I tried, and I succeeded, and it was really, really inspiring, and it really just motivated me to do more. And woodworking has been a part of my life, I think, forever, because my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was a carpenter, and some of the furniture that he built when she was a child is still, in their family home, which is incredible. My dad's tinkered a bit with wood, and so it's always been kind of around me, but not something that I was ever, not, I wouldn't say was never interested in, just given the opportunity to be able to get acclimated with. So yeah, here I am. The first thing I built was a bed, and I've built quite a few things since then.
That's amazing. I love hearing that. And that's awesome. And I didn't realize that you too were married to a master woodworker. So we
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
have a lot in common.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I really love our husbands for being so patient and being willing to share their craft, because it's so amazing, and I'm forever grateful for him for for that and many other things, but for that for sure.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I love it. So how did you and your husband meet? I might have missed that, or how did y'all end up?
We actually met. So I moved to Philadelphia um, at the end of 2016 and didn't know anyone here. I was just kind of wanting to start over. And Yuri and I, my cousin in New York, she suggested me, trying Match.com. She was like, yeah, I know you don't do those dating apps or sites, but try it, just to meet new people in a new city. And I did the paid version because I thought, people on the paid version wouldn't be as creepy. It was an interesting experience for the week that I was on there, because I was only on there for a week.
Woo,
But
okay.
within that week, I met Yuri and we had chatted back and forth. And there was just something about him that I knew was special. And I didn't have any expectations, plans, intentions. And I don't think he did either, once I told him a little bit about myself and, the fact that I wasn't really looking for anything. But we agreed to meet at a park. I told him to bring his dog, which is now our dog. And we ended up hiking and talking for like 4 hours. And here's this guy who's, an older Caucasian male that I would never ever think, not that I was opposed to it, but I never thought that that was what my husband would look like. But I couldn't deny what was happening. And we had a very long courtship, because I was also like, healing from trauma and going through a lot of things. And he was so patient. And we had a really, really beautiful courtship. He taught me a lot. He just wanted to be around me and gave me the space to come into where I was, to meet him where he was. And yeah, and then the rest is history.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm tearing up over here. I'm like, oh my gosh. Excuse me.
It is. I feel really blessed. I feel really fortunate. I feel like the universe just, poured a whole lot of love on me at that time, right when I needed it. So,
whew. Yeah. Well, that is just beautiful. Gosh, and maybe it's resonating with me so much because it just reminds me a lot of like how my husband and I met. And I love that. And you're right. I am so grateful for everything, but especially for, I look back and I'm like, he must have really liked me because, here's this, I really like a truly master woodworker, and can build just about anything that he can. And he wanted to spend time with me. He wanted to spend his time, which is invaluable, irreplaceable, teaching me. And it's just like you said, you can't be replaced. And you just know, and
you just know, as cliche as it sounds.
So now this has turned into a romance podcast. Shifting gears, Love and Wood. That's what we're going to call it.
Love and Wood. I actually like that.
I know that might be what I named this interview, actually, in Pen and Chisel. That'll be a good one. I like that. So
I'd be honored.
Well, goodness. All right. Well, let me dry my eyes a little bit.
I wish I could give you a hug.
I know. But let's get back to you. Let's get back to your practice, because it sounds like something really, like a seed was planted very early on, something very special. So, what has it been like for you? What is something that has surprised you about this whole experience?
I've thought about this a lot over the years. I think the thing that was most surprising was how woodworking has turned into a form of therapy, self-love, healing, and to be able to merge the two. It's funny when you said, love and woodworking, because like I felt like I was able to pour love into every single creation, into every single project. And I've worked mostly with reclaimed lumber, so looking at a really filthy, rusty, nail-ridden, plank of wood, and seeing what it could become, and pouring, love into that thing, and being able to bring it back to some of its former glory was really therapeutic for me. And it definitely helped me heal a lot through some difficult things. Just having my mind busy, having my hands busy, just, the excitement of learning something new, the excitement of, working alongside this man who I think is incredible and a genius, and is taking the time to teach me these things, and making sure I did it myself. I was, toting those logs by myself. And he was very close by, but he really allowed me to do everything on my own. Was very patient, and all of that it just turned into a really healing experience. And now when I approach something, I'm just always reminded of that, and I'm always able to create these things from love.
Wow. That's so awesome. And it's got to be incredibly motivating to want to get into the shop and to do the work. And it makes it not feel like work. Work almost feels like the wrong word.
It's the wrong word for sure. It's the wrong word. Yeah. It's love work.
There you go.
I think that word's going to be, it's going to be floating around this interview. I can tell the word love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I was really interested when you said, you had been working with reclaimed lumber, and so lots of questions about that. And I love the parallel that is there with your experience and reclaimed lumber. Probably one of the things that draw a lot of woodworkers to it is the chance to give your materials another life. I don't even want to say second life. Sometimes it's the third or the fourth. So what drew you to using reclaimed materials?
Honestly, at the time, it was mostly because it was what was there.
Yep.
There was a big heap actually outside of the shop. So exposed to the elements for the most part. There was a piece of tarp and a brick on top of them. And I was like, hey, what's this? And he was telling me that it was a demolished house here in Philly, a 100-year-old row home that was demolished. Wow. And those were the floorboards. So like really big, like those old style floorboards, really beautiful. And I just wanted to, it was more so like, one, the availability of it and accepting the challenge. Like, how do I make this look like something else, or, restore some of its former glory, which I can imagine, what that house was like when it was built. And getting the wood, cleaned, of the nails out, sanded down, that was definitely the hardest part of building the entire bed.
Oh, because hard, dirty work.
Hard, very dirty work. But yeah, it just, I love the idea, and within, my life in general, I try not to waste. I tend to reuse things, repurpose things, even with, crafts with my son. Like I find things around the house to, help teach him. And it was just something that I think is a part of my life in general. So I was definitely up for the challenge, and it really is a beautiful process.
Wow. Yes. I, would love to have you looked up by chance, if try to see a picture of that house out of curiosity? See, I'm a weirdo. I'll look it up.
that there's another a company that he gets wood from often, and they do that, and I think they're so cool. I'll make sure and get the name and send it to you, because they tell the story of the wood that they're selling to you, with pictures, and it's amazing. as soon as we're done, I'm going to make sure I send it to you. But I do not know. I don't think they knew. I think it was just kind of dropped off,
I see.
which is why I was sitting outside, sitting outside in the rain.
Oh gosh,
I
yes.
don't know, but I think that would be worth researching. I don't know how I would go about it, but I will try.
Oh, absolutely. And no pressure there. I just love chasing down a good story. And
Yeah.
especially living in and now outside of Charleston, but I always, if I,
Mm-hmm.
had lived in a mixture of locations, and I always liked kind of knowing my history, knowing what was
Mm-hmm.
going on. And um so yeah, and
I've definitely imagined quite a few. I do this thing where I try to fill in the gaps. So when I don't know something and I know I'm not going to know, I just kind of fill in the gaps. So I've definitely imagined quite a few stories about these timbers.
I love
Even
that.
as I was building the bed, and the stories of the families that walked on them, and
Mhm.
yeah, so it would be interesting to know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lots of stories to
Mm-hmm.
visualize. And yes. Oh, wow. And that's another thing I love about wood. It's something that, um, it's throughout generations, for millennia. It's something that has spoken to us and has been a part of
Mm,
our lives. And it really does, I think, connect us more than people realize. And
mm-hmm.
that's probably why I think woodworking becomes such a personal uh, practice act. I'm not,
Yes.
it's almost like a
Yes.
religion
It
for
is.
some. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, so, and it sounds like our husbands, yes, more in common. We often have entire trees just like dropped off in our driveway, and I'm like, really?
Another tree. Oh,
Really?
that's funny. Oh gosh.
So yeah, but I won't complain too much, because if it's good enough here, it's, hopefully it's pretty nice. But so you mentioned that you have a son, and
Me too.
wow, another thing that we have in common, so many things to balance. And seeing how personally intertwined your practices with your life. What is it like to be a creative person and also a parent, and how do those two aspects of your life work together?
Um, it's extremely what's the word? It's very eye-opening. Um, it's a it's a process where I'm always learning, I'm always having to adjust. I'm a stay-at-home mom now. I was a teacher. Um, and it's only so I've been building for a while, and when I had Saul, things got put on hold just because I was so involved with being his mother. And just kind of feeling like I had to give him 100% of me, which is wonderful, and wonderful that I had the opportunity to stay at home and not work. And that's such a privilege.
Right.
And now this process getting back to woodworking has been it's been painful because I had gotten to a place where I may have lost myself a bit in motherhood. Um,
Yeah.
I put a lot of my things on hold to be his mother. Um, and I'm not sure why I did it to myself, because I have a very, very supportive husband who, if I say, "Hey, I want to do this," he's like, "Okay, let's figure out how we can make this happen." And he's extremely supportive in that way. And I love that he trusts me and my skill and my stick to itiveness, so he knows that I'm not just gonna, you know, flake out on something. But getting back into it was such a growing process. I was searching for my autonomy again, as I'm looking at my son search for his own.
Yeah.
So just going through all those motions, figuring out the timing and how everything will work for our family moving forward. Um, it's been it's so many so many things, so many things: love, pain, excitement, just and a lot of it has to do with me and me losing myself within my process and having to now find myself again. And so it's been very humbling, very beautiful. um Thankfully, a lot of things made easy because I have such a supportive partner. And such a wonderful kid. He's such a wonderful kid who loves to run around the shop. And uh yeah, it's been scary. It's been scary, thinking. I have a friend, her name is Alex, really wonderful sister friend of mine. She lives in Maryland, and for years she's been saying, Safa, open an Etsy store. Safa, you need to do this. You're so good. You have to, like, people can't do it. You can do it. And, just a lot of self-doubt and being worried about how my craft would be received, being worried about getting sucked into the money of it all, and the joy being sucked out of it because of that, and just being unsure. So it's been a lot. Like this, I just started my business Instagram page. So this is all, like, getting back into it is very new. And finding Woman of Woodworking, finding Pen and Chisel is kind of what opened that door for me and gave me, the courage I, the extra push I needed. I'm like, oh my gosh, there are women out here, women out here doing it, because we're kind of unsung, right? We're not really talked about or highlighted in other places. I feel like this field is dominated, by older white men, and I didn't think there was a space for me in this community. So finding your Woman of Woodworking and seeing, like, the stories of all these amazing women. A couple of them I had already followed, like Sally Plumley. I've been following her for a
Yeah.
while, and it was just really inspiring for me. So thank you for for helping me through this process. I don't know if I would have done it at this time if I had not found you.
Wow. Sorry. I just thank you so much. Like, and again, like, it's just, it resonates with me so much because when I, had my two children, our second was a little bit of a surprise, I'll be honest. I was, kind of at the height of everything. Work was going great, things were going
Yeah.
great. But you're right, motherhood, you give so much of yourself because you want to, because it
Hmm.
feels natural. And you're right, though, before you know it, you're like, who am I?
Who
And
am I? Yeah.
you are trying to raise these little people when your own sense of self is kind of, at first it's I mean, there is nothing like becoming a mother, and
Yeah.
everyone who said that, they were right. Like,
Hmm.
it opens up a part of yourself that you didn't even know existed, really.
Right. Yeah.
But it can be, good things can be really hard too. And
Yes.
I don't think we are alone in our experiences as parents, as woodworkers, as women
Hmm.
woodworkers. And I think, actually, for anybody that's a parent, that's something that they can relate to. I
Yeah.
also find it really lovely that, uh, that you have found, community with us, and I'm just so glad
Yeah.
that we have connected personally. I like, seriously want to be your best friend. But this is what it's all about. And
Yeah.
that was why I always say that was kind of why I, like, started this project, was because I love my husband, and I'm very grateful for his mentorship. And I know, gosh, like, how incredibly privileged it was for me to be able to walk
Oh yeah.
into, into the fully, that situation with him, the shop, everything.
Yeah.
And being able to pass that along, that brings me a lot of joy. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that we are all finding each other and connecting. I'm so glad. And I'm also really glad that I think the woodworking community as a collective is starting to realize, okay, we've been doing these mentorships. We've been bringing women into our shops for years. Women have been in
Mm-hmm.
woodworking,
Mm-hmm.
but it's time to be intentional about who we're pushing to the forefront, um,
And
where
yeah,
we're
and this
going
is
in the
why
future.
telling our stories are so important. This is why we have to tell our, something you said earlier. You said, we're not alone in these experiences. And this is why it's so important to, do the honest sharing, do the work, tell our stories. This is why your work is so important. Even my friend Alex, she's a writer, she has a podcast, she's so inspiring, and she really teaches about community and self-worth and self-love, and women are out here doing it. Like we are out here. I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful. And I'm excited that my son gets to grow up seeing, so many wonderful women and men in his life. But I didn't have that growing up. I saw women who shrunk themselves constantly, who never reached their potential because they felt like there was no space for them to spread their wings. And I feel privileged too to be able to walk into an 18,000 square foot wood shop with CNC machines and edge banders and table saws, and like I that's my domain. No one's ever going to tell me to leave. So it's just like it's a privilege. Absolutely. You said the perfect word. It's a privilege.
Yes, it really is. And um I've learned so much, and it's quite a balance, when
Hmm.
my husband and I were first together. It was just the two of us, and we could spend all day in the shop together, not talking, but like
Mm.
having that connection, being able to share that space. And growing our family has been hands down absolutely the most wonderful thing I think that has happened to both of
Oh,
us. I think I could speak for him on that. um,
yeah.
but it is growth. It is growth, and it's
Yeah.
it's not always easy. And I also think living in this particular day and time, being able to reach out virtually and connect with people, uh, was not, of course, I don't think any of us were really anticipating for the COVID situation to happen the way it has, but
Oh,
it,
or go on this long.
yeah, I know. But
Really.
I really hope it is going to make us, at least all on a personal level, kind of
Hmm.
reevaluate, what is important to us. We're seeing
Hmm.
how important that time, connection, you
Oh yeah.
those things that can't be ordered off of Amazon.
Yeah, even through this process, like, you know, living through a pandemic with a family, with a young we're a young family still, our son is 2 years old. And um again, I'm constantly being reminded by the universe just how like how blessed I am. And with the pandemic, seeing so many people who did not have the luxury of being at home with someone kind, you
Oof.
know, to to have a home where they didn't have to worry about paying the rent or the mortgage. Um, just so much. And I think that I would like to think that most people have paid attention, have taken notice of of what's important, and where we really need to be as a society. I'm hoping for our kids that the world they grow up in, that the world that they pass on to their children will be better. And even if it's just in our small circles, I feel like there is a victory there, and there has been a major shift, you know.
Absolutely. A small stone can still make a large ripple. And I try
Yeah.
to think about that and know that there are things that we will not see or experience that hopefully will be impacted by our
Hmm.
actions today. Yes,
Absolutely.
very well put. Well, we've talked about the opportunities we've had in
Hmm.
woodworking. What are some that you would like to see made available for other women?
Um, I think that, I mean, one thing that I would love to be able to do in the future is to teach,
Mm.
to make woodworking, even learning about tools and how to use them properly, making that readily accessible to people, especially in marginalized communities, and in schools. Like, I remember, I'm going to show my age here, but I remember when I was in school, we had a woodworking class. Like, it was like a whole, like a warehouse, a really big wood shop. And so there was woodworking and home economics. And if
Mm,
you were a boy,
mm,
you got to go to woodworking. And if you were a girl, you had to go to home economics.
mm.
And I remember being so infuriated. And what made it even worse was that my mom's cousin was the shop teacher at my school. And I
Oh,
would be like, "Hey, Uncle Selwyn, can you teach me?" He's like, "No, you have to go to home ec." And I was so upset that that was how, and this was in the Caribbean, by the way. I just, they we're still working on being a little more progressive, but it was just it was just really frustrating that I didn't have an opportunity to get my hands dirty in school.
mm.
Life skills are so important, and we're losing, even with beekeeping. Beekeeping is such a beautiful love craft, and I don't want it to be lost. Woodworking, I don't want it to be lost, because we just aren't making these things available to people, or letting them know that this is a path that could ultimately make them successful if that's what they want. We kind of churn out these, what's that phrase, cogs in the machine, where you have one path to success. And I really would love to see people in communities, women in communities, walk into their own power, pick up a power tool and say, I can build this. And we don't know unless we try, right? Unless we have that exposure. Like, we grow up thinking things aren't accessible to us, so we never even dream about it. We just push it away. And I would really love to see that be implemented in schools, in communities. I would love to see established shops donate their time and create those experiences for people who may not even know that it's out there.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, the woodworking class, I must fall into a very probably the same age bracket, if not far from you. We also had woodworking shop class, and I'm looking back. I don't think it was ever even offered to
No,
girls in the junior high class. I think
no, it wasn't. Yeah.
automatically assumed we would take with like band or chorus. Um,
Yeah.
so that was not something I think I had really thought about before, but
Mm.
how valuable, I mean, who knows what if I had been exposed to it, like you said,
Yeah.
that exposure is huge, and yes,
It is.
eventually I
Yeah.
found my way, but how many,
Mm.
and then I also think how many students are there out there that are being put into this very like traditional schooling
Mhm.
model and would really thrive to have something like that added to their
Mm.
curriculum. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I absolutely. And just I can't believe that they said no. That is like,
No,
I guess I
I
can
had
imagine
to
that.
go learn how to sew and cook with all the other girls. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's
Imagine lots of
really,
angry sewing.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and
Oh
that there's so
boy.
many layers to that situation for you know
Yes.
the family dynamic.
Hmm.
That had to
And
be
see,
pretty
I
hard.
was, what's funny though, I was very much a tomboy. My dad had only brothers. I was the first granddaughter in like two generations almost. And I grew up being told I was very capable. I went fishing with my dad. My dad did technical drawing. He was a draftsman. And so like he gave me my first T square. And like um I was always I was always allowed to be me at home. And it was mostly society that told me that I could not. But yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's lovely, and makes me also think as a parent, I try to be very conscious about the decisions I make to kind of foster that creativity and
Hmm.
individuality, because that is one thing that a lot of creative folks say. It's like, my parents, they allowed me to do this, and that's why,
Mm.
so it matters. It really does. So
Yep.
we've heard how you've come to this place in your practice. Where do you see yourself in the future? It sounds like it's a vast open road for you.
Yes.
You're like, don't put it that
I
way.
think about that a lot, and it is because I feel really limitless. Um, and I don't necessarily want to just stick to one thing. So my biggest goal, and something I want for generations moving forward, is I really want a high quality, um, a line of carefully thought out, very unique Montessori toys,
Mm.
for children. So I'm working on the prototypes right now. Hopefully, I'll be able to launch them in the new year. Um, but I love my son, and I love seeing him acquire the world, and he was the inspiration for that particular path. Um, I really want to create things that he can give to his children, and um, yeah, I want to foster learning. I want to spark kids' creativity with the things that I make, and parents too. Yeah, just be able to pay that forward and affect generations of learning. Um, I definitely do still plan to continue doing custom work. Um, I actually just got a custom job to make a toy chest. So I'm really
Aw.
excited about that and adding a few really surprise details for my client. But she's expecting her first child in the new year, and I'm excited to create this for her and the baby. Um, so I do plan on doing custom work. I know that moving forward as a family, we're gonna do a lot of adjusting, as Saul gets older and his needs change, our needs change, time constraints. And I would love to do it full time. Right now, I'm only in the shop about a couple days a week, and right now that's enough. Um, but I would love to do it full time. I would love to own something with just me and my husband, and to continue just making and teaching and learning. And yeah, it's pretty it's pretty open, as you said. It's a fast open road.
That's exciting. That sounds, really,
Yeah.
lots of opportunity there. And
Hmm.
what a blessing it is to be able to share this time, with your son. That was one thing,
Hmm.
you know, um, going back to working for myself, and that was kind of an adjustment. And then, of course, with COVID, I'm finally getting kind of that one-on-one time that, you just can't replace. But it sounds like you have a nice balance, because we are still whole people with our own needs and very creative people. And so it's very refreshing to hear, someone finding that balance, and, being able to.
It's a constant struggle for sure. And I will say, like you mentioned, community definitely is what helps propel me forward. Just, knowing that it's there, and so yeah, community is so important, and that's what helps me, gain and maintain that balance for sure. But it's definitely work. It's a lot of work.
It is. Nobody mentions exactly how much work it all really is.
Yeah.
We're working in our sleep.
Basically. Oh boy.
Well, you had mentioned you had just started your new business, Instagram. Is there any other, are there any other places that people can get in touch or see more of your work, or is your new Instagram the place to keep an eye?
Yeah, so definitely the Instagram. It's Safa Iman Woodworks. So it's SAFAIMAN Woodworks. I'm working on my website right now, so that's going to be added to the profile soon, and I'll post more as I get more pictures of things, as I work on things. I'm figuring it out as I go along, so I'm definitely starting slowly and allowing the pace to adjust itself, as I start getting more comfortable with the load of it all. But yeah, my Instagram, look out for my website. I will do more posting in the very near future. But yeah, everyone should stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, Safa, thank you so much. This was just such an incredible conversation, and I'm very excited for you and what's ahead for you.
Thank you so much. It was an honor. It was so good meeting you. You feel like an old friend. You really do.
So do you. I'm like, I'm ready for this to be over. Yes, I know. Especially Philadelphia. My sister lived up there for a few years, and I've always wanted to.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I love Philly. Oh my gosh.
There's a very robust woodworking community, of course, in the area. So as it's on the top, if not, top 5 on my list once I'm out of here. That's one of the places I'm heading.
You're welcome. You're welcome anytime. You can sleep on the bed I made.
Oh, I would love that. That would be so special. That would be. And likewise, I tell, folks all the time, Charleston, it's, we live a little ways out, so you'd really be able to see the best of both worlds, kind of being out of it. And then also Sam at the woodworking school, I'm hoping we'll be able to do some more classes and things like that again once someday,
Yes.
But I'm
sure our paths will cross. I'm sure they will.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, thank you so much. This is just
thanks, Katie.
Great. And yes, thank you.
We'll chat soon.
All right. Bye-bye.